Sunday with Sensei's Journal is a series of 5 books based on the blog that I did for 10 years on the bushidokai.net website. Each book's a little different, but generally, if I were to talk about them as a unit, they are my reflections on thoughts about the martial arts, obviously, both current events, but also philosophical reflections. At one point, many years ago, before there were even websites or blogs, an editor for the Atlantic Monthly asked me if I would do an article about martial arts, about what they were like, because they were relatively new to people in the 70s. You know, I have been doing them since the 60s, but the general population was just getting used to them through Bruce Lee. And I thought about it, and I said, you know, I've only had 8 or 10 years of experience. I'm not going to be the one that does this. Well, fast forward to 10 years ago, and of course I had plenty of experience. So I started writing the blog about choosing a martial arts school, what the different schools are like, the different emphases on martial arts, the balance between sport and self-defense, MMA versus traditional martial arts. And over a period of 10 years, I wrote an essay almost every week. Now, when I combine them, each book has about 100 essays. The first one is Welcome to the Dojo, Sunday with Sensei's Journal, Welcome to the Dojo. And it had to do with the initial idea of what's it like to be in the dojo? What do we do that's a little different than other people? People's reaction to all this Oriental mumbo jumbos, when you're allowed to say that. And then it goes on to other things like mind, body, and spirit in the martial arts. So that's the initial volume. The second volume is called Martial Arts Myopia, and I talk about general philosophical reflections on character in the martial arts, the idea of holistic martial arts, which was an original title of a book I was going to do years ago, and morphed into Road to Mastery. Or actually doing the essays allowed me to go into various other subjects without having to keep the general theme of the book intact. Invisible Service, Volume 3, was named after an essay by an Arab author that was given to me by one of my students, and he talked about profiting from his time at the dojo such that he felt that I was giving service that to people, to the students, that wasn't overt, that you could, obviously you could tell if we were exercising, you were getting exercise. But he was talking about the invisible service. So I did a number of essays on that, and other ideas that took common themes and hit them from a different angle, like the idea of dynamic traditionalism. In the 4th volume, Masters and Choices, somebody said to me, oh, you studied under, and he named somebody. I said, well, I did. I studied let's say Don Angers. I stayed at his house for a long weekend. He visited my dojo several times, stayed with me. So he was a mentor. I was never an official student. And then the person who asked me said, well, what about this person? What about that person? Oh, you studied under Kanai Sensei and Aikido? Yeah. You studied under Yamada? Well, I had classes under Yamada. I had classes under Chiba, a number of notable people. And then karate, I've studied under a lot of big names. Now, sometimes they were one class or a seminar. But I had experienced that teacher, which was a wonderful thing. And I talk about the dominant part of this book is the people I've run into and studied under, even for a short time, and my reflections on them. The final volume is called Preserve and Improve, and this is a little bit more wild and woolly in the sense that it's more widespread in subject. And it has to do with philosophy and psychology of people in the martial arts. I won't go into any further detail. Suffice to say that I want people to be objective and rational in their martial arts. I constantly run into people who are not. That doesn't mean martial artists are like that necessarily. It just means that martial artists have the same variation of people that any subject does. But I wanted to reflect on that. So 100 essays here on called Preserve and Improve, which is what people tend to want to do in the long term in their martial arts and for themselves. They want to preserve and improve themselves. The way to do that for a martial artist is to preserve and improve their study of martial arts. A winning point about the books is that they're short essays. You can easily read one a night and have 2 years worth of reading in one book. Or you might say, well, that's interesting. Let me read the follow-up essay. And you make it absorbed into it. So it's, they're short, they're pithy, and I hope you'll find that they're very interesting. So thank you very much. Sunday with Sensei's Journal, 5 volumes. Thank you.